What's going on, guys? Drummer Brad here. Today I'm coming at you with a vlog. It's going to be my top 30 nostalgic albums. So yeah, as you can see, as you'll come to see, I should say, I'm a very nostalgic person. A lot of I find a lot of the decisions I make, nostalgia influences a lot of those. I'll take a certain way, go into someone's house or something like that. I'm totally that guy. I'm all about those nostalgic memories and stuff. And music is what fuels that for me. My whole life has been like that. It's still like that now. I'll get right now. I'll feel nostalgic about like a song that came out like 6 months ago. As crazy as that sounds, but yeah, these So, actually going off that, I'm going to be doing, this video is going to be more aimed towards when I was younger. I'm not going to be, I put it up to 2014, so, I just graduated high school, believe it or not, and, so I cut it off before my freshman year of high school started, so basically from my childhood all the way to before high school started is when, all these albums are going to be, centralized around. So yep, without further ado, here are my top 30 nostalgic albums, and we'll start with number 30. And by the way, this is going in. I did rank them. I ranked them according to the amount of nostalgia they carry. So number 30 is the obviously still very nostalgic to me, but number 1 is going to be the most out of all of them. So I did actually rank them here. And before I start, also, you may there's gonna be albums on here that you'll be like, wow, that's a great album, why is it so low? And that's simply because I'm not ranking them based on how good the albums are. I'm more ranking them on just how meaningful they are to me. So yeah, number 30 is Sinner by Drowning Pool. This was their first album, released in 2001. It was their only album with Dave Williams, who was their lead singer, who tragically passed away, I believe, in either 2002 or 2003. So, yeah, that's obviously very, very tragic, very sad. I'll tell you what, though, this album, definitely their best album to date. I don't think they will ever top it. And this is one of the very first albums that I ever listened to when I was a kid. My parents introduced a lot of the music I listened to me. I mean, yeah, I listened to this a lot when I was younger. I remember just in the car with my mom when I was as young as even like 5 or 6, I want to say. Even like this is one of those albums where I remember it right as far away as I'm able to remember. This is one of those albums for me. I remember it from that point. So. That's a long time. My favorite, obviously they have the song "Bodies" is on this album. I'm sure everyone knows that song. If you don't know this song, you do know this song, and you just don't realize it. That's obviously one of the highlights on that album. Also, you got a song like the title track, "Sinner." "Tear Away" is a great song. What's another one? "Sermon," "Pity," "Mute." These are all big hits from Drowning Pool and some of their best songs. They're all on this album, which, like I said, I believe is their best. Then we get to number 29. 29 is Asylum by Disturbed. This was their 4th album. No, this is their 5th album. Excuse me. It came out in 2010, and I'd say 2010, anywhere from 2010 to 2012 would be the most, any album from that time period would probably carry the most emotion to me. As we get to the top of the list, there's quite a few albums that are from that time period that really hit me hard. This one, while it is lower on the list, this is one of them that falls into that time period, more towards the beginning of it, so that's probably why it's a bit lower on here, but this, as soon as this came out, my mom is a huge Disturbed fan. It's probably her favorite band. I don't know. So she played a lot of Disturbed for me, and this is one of the ones she played right as it sort of came out. 2010, as I was 10 years old at the time, 10 or 11, one of those. And yeah, just this was also right around the time my parents separated. So around this time, you'll hear me say that certain albums I remember with my mom, and certain albums I remember with my dad. And this one my mom played a lot for me. This was this came out right after they separated. So obviously it was a huge change in my life, and this was one of the major ones that my mom used to play at the time. Yeah, there's some really great songs on there. Some of my favorite Disturbed songs on there, most notably Serpentine, one of my favorite Disturbed songs of all time. The Infection, a great one. Another Way to Die, awesome song. The title track, Asylum. Crucified, such an emotional song. And a lot of you won't hear me talking about like my experiences in high school much with these songs, but a couple of the songs on here, Crucified, Infection, Serpentine, they sort of had a resurgence when I was in high school, and I listened to them, and now I sort of get nostalgic. So they sort of, about that time period, so they sort of have like two moments in my life where that was big. This is one of those albums. Number 28 is Stuck by Adelita's Way. Stuck was their third album. It came out in the summer of 2014. I always find the summertime is a really beautiful time for not just weather-wise, but for music as well. I think a lot of my best memories come during the summertime with music from that. And Stuck came out in the summer 2014, so one of if not the newest album on this list. And it's that summer I took a trip to Colorado because I have some family who lives out there. That was my first time going there, and I haven't been there since. But this album really reminds me of that trip I took. It was like, I want to say we were only there like a week, but this album really reminds me of that. It came out right before that. Songs like Dog on a Leash, which was the lead single, the title track Stuck, which is just like a whirlpool of darkness, and I love songs like that. Different Kind of Animal, Drive, and yeah, those are pretty much it. And then a lot of those songs carried into my freshman year of high school, which was obviously a bit of a tough time for me, just to trying to adjust. So yep, 28. Then we get to 27, which is Fortress by Alter Bridge. This is their fourth album. Came out in, I believe, October of 2013. And at this point, I was in 8th grade when this came out. It was right after 8th grade started. And my dad played this song for me a lot. He would pick me and my sister up, and we'd go out to eat somewhere and then go back to his house. And this album he used to play a lot at that time. And I just fall is another great time for music in my opinion. Summer and fall are the two best times for music. And just because fall is such like a beautiful time for like in nature, and this album really has like a fall vibe to it. I'm gonna say that about a few more of the songs on here, but this is the first example of that. And Alter Bridge is, I would easily call them my favorite band of all time. They just have, you're gonna see them. I think they show up 2 more times on this list. And obviously The Last Hero, which came out 2 years ago. When I eventually come out with a top nostalgic albums of high school video, Last Hero will be very up high on that list. And yeah, Fortress, number 27 on here. Got some epic songs on there. Cry of Achilles, title track Fortress. Yeah, I just kind of noticed all 4 of the albums I've listed, the title tracks on those songs are all great. But Fortress, the song Fortress, one of the Alter Bridge's most epic songs to date. So it just got like, what is it? I think it's over 7 minutes. I know that. I think it is at least. If not, it's like 6:30 something. But there's some really epic songs on here, and it has such a relaxing vibe to it almost. The whole album does. You listen to a song like Lover or Calm the Fire, so like eerie, so moody. Alter Bridge does that really well. They did it really well with this album too. Number 26 is Sick and Twisted Affair by MyDarkest Days. This is their second and last album. Hopefully they have another one, because honestly, MyDarkest Days, if you take, besides Alter Bridge, I'd say MyDarkest Days might be like my favorite band of all time that's not like still active. I love every one of their songs. I'd say I could pick a moment in time where I've literally been addicted to every one of their songs that they ever released. And Sick and Twisted Affair, it is a bit lower on here. Their self-titled, their first album, their self-titled is going to be higher up on the list. But Sick and Twisted Affair, I didn't really. The thing is with MyDarkest Days, I didn't really get into them until about 2014. That's when I really started getting into them. Sick and Twisted Affair, really, I really started getting into that around the same time as Stuck by Italy's Way over the summer, going into my freshman year. I remember, again, a lot of these songs were really present on that trip to Colorado I went on. So this, Stuck by Italy's Way, and also Isolate and Medicate by Seether, which isn't on this list, but those three albums really go hand in hand with that Colorado trip. So yeah, and I'm not even gonna list my favorites off the album. They're all my favorites. This whole album is an amazing album. I really hope they get back together one day. Like Matt, 3 Days Grace is awesome and all, but MyDarkest Days, you guys got to do something. Seriously. Then number 25 is The Sickness by Disturbed. So the second album by Disturbed on this list, and it was their debut album, released in the year 2000. And this was, just like Drowning Pool Center, this was really one of the first, like, this album was the first album that I remember listening to. Before Center, before some of the other albums I'm going to name. This was the first album that I was presented with. And, like, that's really, like, it's really weird to think about. When I listen to some of those songs, I'm like, wow, this is weird. I feel like I'm, like, 3 again. I mean, as far as I can, like I said about Sinner, as far as I can remember, I remember this album. And, yeah, there's not really much to say about it. Like, I say Disturbed really had, like, a distinct sound with this album, and then they had a really distinct sound with Believe, their second album. And then they sort of combined both of those on all their later albums, but this one is just, like, straight up nu metal. Straight up, like, you know, the rapping, the sort of electronic aspects you get in songs like Stupefy or Meaning of Life. And this easily, like, Disturbs, like, it's definitely one of their heaviest albums. I don't think there's a single slow song on here, or like or even like a melodic part on here. Like there's some melodic parts, but overall this album is just so like raw, and I think Disturbed pulls that off really well. Number 24 is We Are Not Alone by Breaking Benjamin. This album, this was probably the first Breaking Benjamin album I ever got into, and it was also when I was a kid, obviously, and it came out in 2004, I believe. 2004, and I remember listening to this with my parents all the way until their next album came out, Phobia, which will be higher up on this list, and so yeah, another really early point in my life when I was in like kindergarten and first grade. I even still have memories from that, believe it or not, as crazy as it sounds. And yeah, this is definitely a great album. There's lots of awesome songs on here that I still listen to now. Simple Design, Break My Fall, So Cold, which is one of my favorite Breaking Benjamin songs ever. Follow, which I just learned on guitar actually, and obviously a bunch more. But yeah, this is an epic album. Then 23 is Dark Horse by Nickelback. I know Nickelback tends to get a lot of hate, and personally, I'm strongly against it. I think that they have a lot of really great work. I think the reason that a lot of people are turned off by Nickelback is because, yeah, they have some of that. They are like, you know, that party rock band, and yeah, a lot of it's a bit cheesy, and they have those cheesy ballads, and yeah, I will admit that as a Nickelback fan, but at the same time, if you listen to some of their heavier songs, like, if you listen to, like, an instrumental of, like, a heavy Nickelback song, like a song like Something in Your Mouth, or, well, on this album I'll use examples, Something in Your Mouth, or Shaking Hands, or even Burn It to the Ground, like, they can really, like, put out heavy songs. And they can put out the really emotional songs too that aren't super super cheesy. Like the song "Just to Get High," so emotional. That's one of Nickelback's most emotional songs of all time, and I don't think that song's cheesy at all. And even the songs that are a bit would fall into that category of with songs like "Photograph" and "Someday" and all those. Like a song like "I'd Come for You," I really like that song. I think that song's packed full of emotion. "Never Gonna Be Alone," that too. That's really, I'd say that's Nickelback diving into a theme that they don't really discuss often. And yeah, this album is just I think this album is a great example of Nickelback sort of defying the odds and putting out an album that really, like, it's expected, but at the same time, it is a bit different from their typical, Nickelback cookie cutter formula. So that's good. Number 22 is "Beneath the Scars" by 12 Stones. This is 12 Stones' only appearance on this list. Honestly, I didn't really got into much of their older stuff, but this album came out in, I believe, 2012, and my dad played this album for me a lot. Like I said, in 2012, 2013, when I was in like 7th grade, so right after I switched schools, which yeah, super surreal for me, very difficult. This album was one of the ones we listened to most, and a lot of it definitely has like a very similar sound throughout the whole time. You got quite a few heavier songs like Infected, Bulletproof, Psycho, and I think a couple more. And then you got some of the you got like the ballads. You got Blind, Bury Me, Shine on Me, a couple more. And then you got the radio rock sound songs like Worlds Collide. Yep, number 21 is "Dear Agony" by Breaking Benjamin, second appearance on the list. This album came out in 2009, so when I was in 4th grade, right about, I think. This album, like, this is one of the ones we listened to, like, right before my parents separated. This is one of a couple of my last memories with having them both there at the same time. Yeah, obviously that's pretty heavy for me. Once again, just like "We Are Not Alone," it's a great album. There are lots of songs I still listen to now. The title track I think is a beautiful song. "Fade Away" is, I think, one of Breaking Benjamin's most underrated songs. I think that could have been a huge radio single if they pushed it. "Crawl" is a great song. "Lights Out," one of their heaviest songs ever. Same with "Hopeless." And I just think there's a lot of cool songs on here. And some of their most underrated work, I believe, is on here too. Then we get to number 20, which is "Break the Spell" by Daughtry. This was their 3rd album. It was released in 2011. So again, right around that time after my parents got divorced. My dad really played this album for me a lot. We go to Minnesota a lot because my grandma, his mom, lives up there, and I remember. It might have been the last time we ever drove there. We've been flying there lately, which I kind of don't like. I really like driving there. But one of the last times we drove there, we played this song once we actually got to the city. Yeah, whenever I hear that, I just picture driving through the city one last time. We went to the auto show that year in Minnesota because it was in town, and I used to be really into cars when I was 11, 12. I remember listening to that album on the way to the auto show with both my dad and my grandpa. Yep, number 19 is "Here and Now" by Nickelback once again, their second appearance on here. And honestly, just like Dark Horse, I really think that they, unlike Dark Horse, I think they went for a more like raw sound with this album. You got a lot of just heavy shredders on here, like "Kiss It Goodbye," "Bottoms Up," "This Means War," one of their heaviest songs to date. And like you got what's it called? "Everything I Want to Do," that song on there. That's more like, that song almost sounds sinister. I mean, like, that may sound weird to say with like its lyrical themes, but I love the mood that song gives off. It gives us this like a dark vibe. I love it. And then obviously they got their classic Nickelback jams on there, like "When We Stand Together," which is one of their honestly, When We Stand Together, that's one of their most well-known songs, I feel like, and it really strays itself from the rest of Nickelback's well-known songs. I think it leans more towards like a mainstream sound as opposed to their classic Nickelback ballad sound, and I think it really worked for them, and obviously it's one of their best songs to date. And then of course you got your other songs on there like Holding On to Heaven. What's the other one? I forgot the name of the other one, but yeah, I know I really like the other one too, but I just forgot the name of it. Kind of a shame, but then we get to 18, which is Full Circle by Creed. This is Creed's only appearance on here. This was really the only like Creed album that I listened to when I was a kid. Like we listened to a few Creed songs like Bullets, Freedom Fighter, Higher, the song Weathered, Stand Here With Me, some of those songs when I was a kid. But I'd say this is really the only full album we listened to. It came out in 2009, so again, just similar to Dear Agony by Breaking Benjamin. It was right like before my parents separated. I remember listening to this album on another drive to Minnesota with both my parents there. It was like we were like right before crossing the border of Wisconsin to Minnesota, and I remember hearing this album and a lot of the songs on here. This is also really I think this is definitely Creed's darkest album to date. It was their reunion album. It was the first album in like 7 years or something like that. Weather came out in 2003, so 6 years. There's some real shredders on here, like the song Fear. That might be Creed's heaviest song to date. It really brings in a lot of Alter Bridge sounds, which I really like. I really like when Alter Bridge goes really dark, and I think they transferred that to Creed on here, and it works really well because with Scott Statt's vocals, when he wants to sound dark, he sounds dark. And like I said, in songs like Fear, Good Fight, Bread of Shame, I freaking love that song. That song is so dark and so heavy. Even the lighter songs like A Thousand Faces, that's one of my favorite Creed songs to date. Mark Tremonti's got some great vocals on that song. I really like when he sort of appears as background vocalist. I like when background vocalists sort of have their time to shine in general. And I think Creed and Alter Bridge, like, together really do that well with Mark Tremonti. That's one of his best appearances as a vocalist. He also you also hear him quite a bit on the song Away in Silence, which is one of my favorites, and a few more songs too. But yeah, this is definitely Creed's heaviest, darkest album to date, and that's why I love it. Then we get to 17, which is Amaryllis by Shinedown. This is their first appearance on this list. It was their fourth album, and this and Sound of Madness, which is higher up on the list. I'd say these were the first two albums the first two Shinedown albums that I really listened to. Amaryllis came out in 2012, so again, while I was in I want to say this was like the summer going into, it came out in March of that year. So as I left 6th grade was before I moved going into 7th grade. So and I had so much fun in 6th grade, so that's why I was so upset, and 7th grade was really not enjoyable at all for me. So Amaryllis is one of those albums that sort of like bridge that. Like, I'm coming off of 6th grade and I'm having so much fun in middle school, and then I get the news we're moving and go to this new school. It's so different. I'm trying to adjust, and like this album was one of the ones that was there for me during that difficult time. There are some great songs that I still listen to on that. Adrenaline, one of my favorite Shinedown songs of all time. Quite a few more. Nowhere Kids I really like. Through the Ghost, which is probably my favorite like ballad that Shinedown has ever done. Then we get to 16, which is Believe by Disturbed. This is their third appearance on this list, and they still have 2 more appearances. So yeah, good for them on that one. Thank you, Disturbed, for making me want to go back to the past a lot. But Believe, just like The Sickness, really one of the first albums that I remember. Like this, it came out in 2002, so I was really little, definitely before I was able to retain memory. And This is one of the first ones I remember listening to in the car with my parents. Like driving to family's house. I have a grandma who lives in Elgin, which is like half an hour away from me. I live in Chicago, just to put things in perspective. I'm talking like you guys all like know where I live and stuff. But no, I live in Chicago, or near Chicago, I should say. And, my grandma lives about half an hour away from me. We'd go there for Christmas Eve and stuff, and I remember listening to this album a lot for that. It's got a lot of dark songs on this album, and like I said, it's so different from their first album, but at the same time, there's some really beautiful songs on here. Like the title track, "Believe," that is one of Disturbed's most beautiful songs ever, in my opinion. "Liberate" is a great song. It sort of has some hints from their first album on there. The song "Breathe," the song "Awaken," "Darkness," which really is their only like original ballad that they've ever done, so I think that's kind of cool. Yeah. Then 15 is "Meteora" by Linkin Park. This is one of 2 appearances by Linkin Park on this list. Meteora, again, one of the first albums that I like remember as a kid. We took a trip to Tennessee when I was really little. I want to say I was like 4 years old, and I remember listening to it then. So that's pretty powerful if that song can make me listen to things, make me like remember stuff when I was 3 years old. So that's pretty cool. And like this album really like haunts me because, like I said, to remember things from when I was that young, like it just makes me feel like the time I'm living in now is like so different and so much worse. It was like when I was that little, like didn't care about anything. Like I'm jealous of my 3-year-old self here. This album really describes that beautifully, I feel like. And whenever I listen to it, I instantly get chills from it. As do, I think I could say that we're in the upper half of the list now. I think I could say that about all the albums that are going to come next. But even some of the, like, I get that with "Believe" too. I get that with "Full Circle." Most of the albums on this list, I could say I get that with, but I'd say "Meteora" is one of the ones I get that with most, just for the reasons I just said. Then we get to 14, which is "The Sound of Madness" by Shinedown. This was their 3rd album. This is really the first Shinedown album that I ever got into. My dad used to play this for me a lot, even when he came out in 2008. So even before the divorce happened, my dad used to play this a lot. I remember I used to do Cub Scouts when I was a kid, and we went to this thing. It was called like the Klondike something. It was like 20-30 minutes away. It was at this forest preserve. I forgot where, and it was in like January, so snow everywhere, super cold, and I remember listening to this album that whole time then, and the whole like my whole time in the Cub Scouts, which was for like 5 years or something like that. I remember this album being there the whole time, mainly in the later years, because obviously I started before it came out. But in like the later years, I remember that a lot. Like we do this thing in a banquet hall every year called, I think it was called the Blue and Gold Banquet. I remember one year was at this mall right by my house. I remember listening to it on the way to and from that. So a really specific memory there. I can name specific memories of probably each and every one of these next ones. I'm not going to for all of them, but that's one of them for that. Number 13 is Blackbird by Alter Bridge. Their 2nd appearance on this list, and also their 2nd album. Definitely musically, it might be their best album. Honestly, I think it's their 2nd best album musically. Came out in 2007. Similar to the Sound of Madness, this is really the first Alter Bridge album I got into. Recently, the past few years, I've gotten more into One Day Remains, but that doesn't show up on this list simply because I didn't really get into it until after high school started, which is really when I started exploring music a bit more. And yeah, Blackbird, it's got so many amazing songs on there. Most notably the title track, one of Alter Bridge's most beautiful songs to date, and definitely one of musically, it might be their best song to date. I know a lot of people think that, and obviously the guitar solo, the double guitar solo. What can I say about that? It's absolutely amazing. This was I remember listening to this album on the way back from Minnesota one year. I think it was just my dad, so it had to have been after the divorce. I remember, yeah, because I remember I was sitting in the front seat of the car. So my sister used to feud about it a lot. And yeah, I remember we're on like the final stretch going home. We're like half an hour away, and I remember this album was playing. I remember as we got home after the 7-hour drive, this album was playing. And, yeah, pretty heavy. Heavy as in, it's not like a heavy album, but heavy as in emotional, I should say. Number 12 is the Heroin Diaries soundtrack by 6am. This is 6am's only appearance on this list, and really with the exception of the double album that came out in 2016, this was really this is really the only 6am album that I've really got explored the whole thing. This is just so dark. It's just like I said about I forgot what album I think I said it about Stuck. This album is just a whirlpool of darkness. If you don't know the story, Nikki Sixx, who is the bassist of this band, also of Motley Crue, this is Nikki Sixx's autobiography. He wrote a book called The Heroin Diaries. This album goes hand in hand with that. It basically the lyrics are about him overcoming his heroin addiction, I should say. Obviously, you can just tell by that there are going to be dark ass songs on here. There totally are. Like, oh man, Van Nuys, so dark. Courtesy Call, insanely dark. Girl with Golden Eyes. Accidents Can Happen, which is actually a very beautiful song, but at the same time, it is on the dark side, I would say. Pray For Me, which is one of the heavier ones on there, and there's a few more that I'm missing too, but I think 6am really pulls off that gut-wrenching, moody atmosphere, maybe even better than any other band that I listen to, at least. Then we get into number 11, which is Truth and Tragedy by Stealing Eden. I'm sure a lot of you may not know this band, but my dad actually discovered them, and he showed them to me. He was like, wow, you gotta listen to these guys, they're awesome. They don't even have much of a following, but this album is actually a really amazing album. I think they might even follow me on Instagram or something like that. But this is really a great album. There are lots of really heavy and emotional songs on here, like songs like Just a Memory, Thrown Away, Too Late, No One Else. Just so many beautiful songs on here that are also quite heavy. So I really recommend you check these guys out. They're a great band. This album really was quintessential for me in the move from one school to another. This album probably helped me with that more than any other album, to be honest. I remember the last Minnesota drive. I'll say it again. A lot of memories from that. The last Minnesota drive we did. This was the first album we listened to. We used to go to this breakfast place called Eclectic, like every Sunday, and we left on a Sunday, so we went there before we left. And we're listening to it on the way there, after we left, and getting on the highway and just driving until the album ended. So yeah, another specific memory for you there. Number 10 is 1X by 3 Days Grace. Like I said at the beginning of the video, you guys may be thinking, wow, it's a great album. Why is it so low? It is a great album, but like I said, I'm more ranking them as how meaningful they are to me. We're in the top 10 now, so all 10 of these albums are extremely meaningful to me, extremely. And I'd say 1X marks really the next level of that. It came out in 2005, so when I was in first grade, this came out. I know that was a long time ago, but I actually have a lot of distinct memories about this album. Again, another Minnesota drive. It was all four of us, me, my mom, my dad, and my sister. We would stop at this place called Perkins every time. They're like Wisconsin, Minnesota, like full of them. But, we would stop there and eat. And I remember this was one of the times, the specific time I'm thinking about. I was really into like construction trucks at one point when I was a kid. I don't know why, but I remember I got like really excited because I saw a construction truck right before we were about to stop at Perkins, and we stopped there. We ate and we left, and that album was playing that whole time as that was going on. This is easily Three Days Grace's best album as far as most popular. I don't know if it's musically their best album. I think this, Life Starts Now, and their self-titled really compete for Three Days Grace best album. I honestly don't even know. If I ever do a top albums blog, those three are definitely going to be tied because there's no way I could pick between those three. They're all amazing. But yeah, 1X is just such a meaningful album to me. I get chills listening to all those songs, just because, just like Meteora, it reminds me of such a simpler time where you know, I didn't really care about anything. And it's just so heavy in terms of emotional. And, yeah, that's not really much more to say there. We're getting to number 9, which is Evanescence, self-titled. It's their third album. It might be a bit of a random album to put on here, just because it is their only appearance on this list. It's probably their lesser known album out of the 3 original albums. But honestly, I easily think it's musically their best album as well. It's just so dark, so moody, so many just moody, gut-wrenching songs on here. I'll name a few, like Made of Stone. Right from the intro, that just hits you hard. It's just full of emotion, full of despair. The Change, The Other Side, My Heart Is Broken, Lost in Paradise. Wow. Disappear, Sick, End of the Dream, Oceans, Never Go Back, which might be my favorite song on the album. These are all songs that are just so emotionally heavy and filled with just, again, I'll say it again, like just this whirlpool of darkness and despair, which really makes for a great album. This came out in 2010, or no, might have been 2011, but so again, it's really in that time period. It's after my parents got divorced. This was one of the albums that was with me during that time. This was really a driving factor in that Another Minnesota Drive, the last one we had. The last time driving through the city, on our way there, this album was playing that whole time, and whenever I listen to it, I think of driving through Minneapolis and St. Paul, and just like hearing all those dark songs, seeing all the buildings pass, the huge buildings, like, wow. So many powerful memories with that album. Number 8 is My Darkest Days, self-titled, their debut album, and again, just like Sick and Twisted Pharaoh, and like I mentioned earlier, such an amazing album. Came out in 2010, and remember, my dad played 3 songs for me. He played Move Your Body, Every Lie, and Can't Forget You. So he exposed me to those 3 songs. That was really, it was around the same time as we were listening to Dark Horse and Here and Now by Nickelback. So these 3 songs sort of blend together with those 2 albums. Then, but as I got into 8th grade and I graduated middle school, like I said about Sick and Twisted Affair, we had that trip to Colorado over the summer. I'd say before that, so right after I graduated 8th grade, here's a really distinct memory for you. Remember in 8th grade, I sort of had a relationship. I don't know if you want to call it a relationship, with this girl who lived in, I think she lived in Glenview. Yeah, I don't even remember, like 20 minutes away or something like that. And I remember I listened to, that's when I really started exploring this album more. I discovered The World Belongs to Me and the song Save Me. And honestly, whenever I hear Save Me, I think of like hanging out with her. And I mean, I know you're probably thinking, oh, we're getting mushy now, but no, like it's just one of those weird, powerful memories. But I get really nostalgic about it. Like 8th grade was such a fun year for me, and then graduating it, that summer was such a fun summer. I loved every second of it, and that marked the beginning of that summer. So those two songs really hit me there. And then over the course of that summer, I then started listening to the rest of the album. Yeah, it's a really great album, as I soon discovered. Then we get to Hybrid Theory by Linkin Park, which is number 7. Came out in 2001, I believe. And yep. This might be, is it the last one? Yeah, it's the last one on here where I could say came out before I could even start remembering. Just like Meteora, it really reminds me of that Tennessee trip we took when we were kids. It's really distinct for me, like driving with my mom places when I was really young, and even both my parents for that matter. But this is like, there's like just so many emotional songs on here. Like the song "Pushing Me Away," that might be like my most like nostalgic song from that album. That one just so packed full of emotion. And, I just love it. Then we get into number 6, which is Indestructible by Disturbed. This is their 4th album. Might be one of their darkest albums. It's dark, but it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. This album was really big for me in like 3rd and 4th grade. Not a lot of other albums were, to be honest. But this one really stands out in that point in time. Another really distinct memory, I remember going with my mom to meet my childhood friend Michael and his mom at this park, and we called it Lake Park. It's in Des Plaines, so it's like 20 minutes away. And, I remember listening to that album on the way to that. And, I remember listening to it on the way to I forgot why we went to Rosemont, but somewhere in Rosemont too, which is like, those who don't know, it's like where the Stevenson Center is, where the Allstate Arena is. Forgot why we went there, but yeah, I remember listening to it with that. It's such a dark, powerful album. I really remember listening to it whenever I drive by the airport, O'Hare Airport. I think of that album just because both those are sort of in that direction, Rosemont and Lake Park. It's just such a emotionally heavy album. There's so many gut-wrenching, dark songs on there. Like Facade, Torn, Deceiver, The Night, Perfect Insanity, Haunted, wow. You can just by the title, I'm like, the title haunts me. That's like how nostalgic it is for me. It's crazy. Number 5 is Leave This Town by Daughtry. This was their 2nd album. Such a beautiful album. Chris Daughtry is just such an amazing voice. I really wish he would make another album like this, because I think he can. I really think he can. But their last album, Baptized, didn't like that at all. That's for another video though. But Leave This Town by Daughtry, he's got so many just beautiful songs on it. Beautiful songs. The song Open Up Your Eyes. That is just that almost brings tears to my eyes. That's how powerful that song is. It is so emotional. Chris Daughtry just does that so well. And even some of the heavier songs, like the song You Don't Belong, it's a heavy song, but it's got such beautiful melodies laced over it. And, as far as some specific memories go, this was really big for me in 6th grade. It came out in 2009, but I was in 6th grade from 2011 to 2012. I did cross country in 6th grade. And we were listening to this album. We had a meet in Crystal Lake, which is about half an hour away. We had a cross-country meet there when I was in 6th grade. My dad picked me up and was driving me home. I remember listening to that album on that drive home. I have a very specific memory, and it's a really beautiful memory because, like I said, that was such a happy point in my life. And that album really describes that perfect for me. Actually, fun fact, I did cross country in high school too, all 4 years. Like I said, I moved after 6th grade, so that was the only time going to that specific cross-country meet. But in high school, I actually had a cross-country meet at that same location. So all 4 years, I would listen to that album all the way there and the way back. Powerful stuff right there. Number 4 is Life Starts Now by 3 Days Grace. This is their 3rd album. Came out in 2009. Again, this is one of the last albums that I listened to before my parents separated. Right, 4th and 5th grade, I really liked this album. Here's a specific memory for you again. I remember the city I live in is Arlington Heights, and I remember I live in Arlington Heights now, but I used to live in the town over. So, but I remember we were going furniture shopping, and we were going into the northern parts of Arlington Heights, which I still don't really go to now. But we were going there, and we were driving around, going to different furniture stores. Looking, I forgot what you're looking for, to be honest. But I was 10 years old. But we were going to different furniture stores, and this album playing the whole time, and I remember each moment of it. I remember stopping at each store. I remember what we ate. I remember we stopped at one store. I forgot which one, and there was water and water bottles and chips that they let me and my sister take. We ate those in the car, and I remember we went out to eat afterwards, the 4 of us. It's a crazy, powerful memory. And I know, again, it's a really random memory, but it's a memory like that will just sum up that whole period of time in my life. That's what makes it so powerful. Yeah. Number 3 is 10,000 Fists by Disturbed. This was their 3rd album. Came out in 2005, I believe. And just like Indestructible, man. Such a dark, heavy, but emotionally heavy album. There's some really, even more than Indestructible, I'd say Indestructible is beautiful in the sense of really dark. But I'd say 10,000 Fists sort of has that too, but at the same time, I'd say it's also beautiful in the sense of like hope. But there are some really dark, gut-wrenching songs, I feel like. Pain Redefined, Overburdened probably are the 2 biggest examples of that. This album, I really, sort of like what I said about Believe, I really remember driving to my grandma's house, like on Christmas Eve. It's dark out, we're on the highway, we're driving to there, and obviously it gets dark out early. This album is playing that whole time, and on the way back, I remember being so sleepy. We just got all our presents and stuff, but we're leaving, we're going home now, and this album was playing that whole time, and it's so like surreal when I listen to that album now. I listen to it in headphones whenever I go there now, actually, with my mom. It's just so crazy to think about. Number 2 is Phobia by Breaking Benjamin. Came out in 2006. Sort of like the last album I mentioned. I also used to have my mom's dad. My grandpa used to live in Wisconsin, on the southern half of that. So we would drive up there sometimes, and that's like a 2-hour drive. This album I really remember listening to on the way there. So I remember I feel like whenever we put this album on and we were going there, it was always like cloudy or rainy or something. This album really takes that and captures that image perfectly. I remember, unfortunately, he moved, so I don't really go there much anymore. But back before he moved, I remember listening to this album in my headphones all the time before we went there. So, very powerful memory there. There's some beautiful songs on here, some beautifully dark songs on there as well, like You Fight Me might be one of my favorite Breaking Benjamin songs of all time. The song Here We Are, Breath, beautifully emotional song. Even Until the End, which might be the heaviest one on there. It's so full of hope brightness. At the same time, it's beautifully dark at the same time. Same with Dance with the Devil, Evil Angel as well. This is just a really great album. I love everything about this album. Honestly, this is just, with the exception of number 1, which I'm about to mention, this is the most emotional album for me. It's the most meaningful album for me ever. With the exception of number 1, which is AB3 by Alter Bridge. Obviously, it's their third album, AB3. Came out in 2010. So, like I said, probably the most emotionally, one of the most emotionally tough times in my life. AB3 was there for me when, right after my parents got divorced. My dad would play AB3 all the time, and I just remember he moved into his new house. I have so many memories of this album, so many memories. He moved into this new house. It was actually like more of an apartment. He lived in the top floor of a house, and it was the owners lived on the floor. I remember we'd go out to dinner. We'd go back to his house. This album would be playing. He'd pick us up from my mom's house, even both before and after the move, and this album would be playing. The Last Minnesota Drive, this is probably the biggest album on that. I remember going there, it's just beautifully sunny out, and you got these just such beautiful songs playing. Like Wonderful Life, one of the most emotional songs that I've ever listened to, and that was playing that whole time. Also Fallout, I remember playing at that point, as well as Breathe Again as well. Like I said, on the flip side, these dark, gut-wrenching songs I remember playing back when my dad would drive us around for dinner and going back to his house and stuff. I remember when we first moved there, we would go shopping we went shopping for beds and stuff, for comforters and our pillows and stuff, and I remember listening to songs like Show Me a Sign and Coeur d'Alene and Words Darker Than Their Wings. I remember listening to songs like those, doing that, which was still really difficult for me just because I'd never lived in another house before. This album really describes, this album is the perfect example of beautifully dark. There's every song on this album I would describe as beautiful in some fashion, whether that's beautifully hopeful, beautifully dark, beautifully sad, beautifully emotional. I'd say all four of those fit into every one of these songs in some fashion. There's just not enough words I can say to describe what this album means to me. This album is the most meaningful album of my entire life, and I don't think any album will ever top that. It's just so amazing, and I get emotional thinking about it. You can just imagine what happens when I listen to it. There's not enough. Can't even put into words what my love for this album is. I hope to meet Alter Bridge one day, and I really want to tell them that, just because it's like there's really not enough I can say to describe what this album means to me, and I get emotional talking about it, man. It's crazy. This is why Alter Bridge is my favorite band of all time, because they just are so good at doing stuff like that. There we go. It's my top 30 nostalgic albums. I've been talking for almost an hour now. I really hope you enjoy the video. I hope to do more sort of basic vlogs like this as opposed to just album reviews. like I said, I really hope you like the video. If you wanna list some of your top nostalgic albums down there, or if you have any suggestions for albums that I should listen to, please let me know. I love just discussing music in general. Anyone ever wants to discuss music, I'm always totally down for that. Just leave a comment below. And yep, that's about it. And I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.